Goodwin. As an award-winning journalist and human rights specialist, Jan Goodwin has covered 17 wars, receiving a very special award from the White House. She was a senior fellow at Brandeis University for a decade. What you may not know is that Jan was introduced to our fellowship through Carol Rockland after she bought Carol's house in Beach Lake. We enjoyed many potluck dinners there. Thank you, Jan, for that. We were also privileged to have Jan serve as UU president for 4 years, and she did a really great job. She will be speaking on stolen childhoods, how America treats foster children. Jan?
Okay, so we're starting?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so as Sharon said, I'm speaking on stolen childhoods today. Senior year in high school is an exciting time. Graduation, the prom, plans for college. But for petite Christine Shield of Virginia, it was a time of terror. She was turned out of foster care because when she became 18, all funding for her support was cut off. Instead of a birthday party, Christine walked the streets looking for somewhere to sleep. She had $15 in her pocket and a backpack containing her toothbrush, a change of underwear and socks, and 2 school books. The first night I rode the metro until it closed at 11:30 p.m., she says. Then I curled up on a bench in a parking lot and tried to sleep. But I was too scared that someone would hurt me or the police would come. When people started arriving at the station the next morning, I caught my school bus and went to classes. Christine took showers at friends' homes when she could, brushed her teeth in the restroom of fast food restaurants in which she could not afford to eat, borrowed clothes from fellow students, and prayed that classmates would invite her home for dinner. If they didn't, she went hungry. When the weather turned cold, she says, I slept in the ER of a local hospital. No one noticed me. It was warm and safe. There was a pantry with free coffee and crackers, and I discovered the hospital supply cupboard had toothbrushes and toothpaste, sanitary supplies, and aspirin when I needed it. An AB student, her grades dropped as she worried each night about where she would sleep, and each day whether she would have something to eat. She had been placed in foster care after her father abandoned her when he remarried when she was 15. Her mother is blind and has severe MS and is already in a nursing home. Her foster parent was a single woman whose own son no longer spoke to her. I think she took me in because she was lonely, says Christine. When I became 18 and the money was cut off, she said she liked me, but I couldn't stay if she wasn't paid. I felt very bad, but the system is like this. You're not that person's child. And if something happens, they can throw you away when they want. Shockingly, Christine is one of thousands of adolescents nationwide who at 18 are forced to leave foster care when states stop reimbursing their foster parents or institutions for their expenses. Traumatized by abuse or severely troubled childhoods, which led to their being placed in care, without training on how to seek and hold a job, maintain an apartment, or even balance a checkbook, and typically with no more than $100, often considerably less in their pockets, these kids are expected to survive on their own. Many, of course, do not make it. For a number of states, the laws changed several years ago, and kids can remain in foster care until they're 21. But in too many states, such as Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Iowa, Louisiana, Montana, North Carolina, Ohio, and Vermont, because of many budget cuts, many are turfed out at 18. In mid-November, First Lady Melania Trump joined her husband for a rare joint executive order signing ceremony to expand resources for teenagers in foster care. Quote, too many people from the foster care community end up homeless, in danger on American streets, she said. Trump added, quote, the Bible tells us that one of the measures of society is how it cares for vulnerable children and orphans. It's so important, so big in the Bible, unquote. But since then, Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill has slashed funding for so many things for children in this country, from free school meals, food stamps, to Medicaid, doctor's visits, cancer treatment, when budgets were cut, grants cancelled or delayed, And while clinical trials, often the final hope for children with terminal illness, have been suspended or closed, or educational programs. The bill reduced support for working class and lower income families.
Picked up, brought to justice, and then deported back to the countries.
I'm sorry, where is this coming from?
We wouldn't be in the situation of Joe Biden having
Lisa
allowing
Weiss,
border policies to be in
What's
place.
going on? What's
Lisa,
going on?
Lisa Weiss, you need to mute your phone or your iPad, whatever it is, and we're only seeing your puppy instead of Jan, who is the speaker today.
Thank you, Jill. I think she's kind of figured this. Okay. The bill reduced support for working class and lower income families, making it harder for children to have basic needs and parents to afford to care for their offspring. There are some 400,000 foster children in this country because they have been abused, neglected, or abandoned by their parents or guardian. All of these children have experienced loss and severe trauma. Time spent in the foster care system adds to the emotional fragility of kids. It's not uncommon, experts say, for a child to have as many as 20 to 40 foster placements, which is stunning, ranging from emergency shelter programs to being bumped from family to family or from one institution to another. They are moved so often, toting small black plastic garbage bags containing their few possessions, they are dubbed nomads by childcare experts. Each new location means a different school and community, different medical care, and this must be tough, a difficult set of rules they are then required to live by. Not surprisingly, many kids are not ready to graduate high school at 18 and may need several more years to catch up. Excuse me. It is incredibly heartless and clearly ridiculous to expect children from such troubled backgrounds to function independently at 18 when we don't expect it of our own kids, says Robin Nixon at the Child Welfare League in Washington, D.C. She and other experts concerned about the aging out issue point to the trend these days for ordinary children to return home after graduating from college because they cannot survive financially alone. So was that rare joint executive order no more impressive than when Melania asked Putin to return the 30,000 Ukrainian children forcibly taken from their families by the Russian government during the current Ukrainian war? The abducted children are subject to re-education and indoctrination, aimed at erasing their Ukrainian identity and language in a network of facilities across Russia. These children are then adopted and forced to take Russian citizenship. The Kremlin did the same during the 10 years of their Afghanistan invasion in the 1980s. Some 50,000 Afghan children aged between 10 and 15 were abducted by the Russians as part of a campaign to indoctrinate them in a communist ideology and use them for military and espionage roles. They were specifically targeted and abducted from villages, orphanages, and city streets by Soviet forces. When Melania asked Vladimir Putin to return the thousands of Ukrainian children, he smiled. He sent back 8 while the kidnappings continue. Ukraine's ombudsman, Dmitry Lubinet, their commissioner for human rights, fears as many as 200,000 Ukrainian children have been abducted thus far. Regarding American foster kids, having been literally dumped out of the system without housing, medical insurance, employment-related services, the opportunity for vocational training or post-secondary education, plus no emotional support, many seriously flounder. Research shows that 4 out of 10 of the nation's homeless are former foster kids. Some 40% of foster kids become homeless after they age out. According to the University of Wisconsin, in the first 18 months of being aged out, only 50% of these young people have been able to find jobs, and those who did were usually making less than minimum wage. 35% have suffered physical victimization or sexual abuse since leaving the foster care system. Girls without a place to sleep are very vulnerable to sex trafficking. Once they age out, as many as 30% become HIV positive because they are forced into prostitution to survive. According to the youth services system, 28% of homeless youth turn to survival sex because they need a place to sleep. 48% who engage in commercial sex do so because they lack a safe place to stay. And about 70% of girls who age out will be pregnant before they reach the age of 21. Official policy is that when foster kids age out, they are done. All services and financial support ends, says a spokesman for the Casey Family Services. Even their Medicaid is cut off. When health insurance is so important, it makes me so angry, she says. Children are in foster care in the first place because of abuse and neglect, she points out. They've had chaotic family lives, have been physically or sexually abused, or both. The parents are often alcoholics, drug addicts, or suffer from chronic mental illness, and are totally incapable of parenting. I had a kid watch her mother smash the TV because she thought witches were coming out of the set. Children who end up in foster care have lived in mind-boggling home environments. Their traumas are major, unquote. Studies show that, in fact, 1 in 3 has marked or severe emotional problems because of their experiences at home. By the time they are ready to age out of foster care, they have such incredible baggage, she says. Yet public policy often has no framework that allows for funding services in those very vulnerable years between 18 and 22. Some 30% of states currently offer very limited assistance, adds Becky Copeland, program supervisor of the National Resource Center at the University of Oklahoma. Less than 50% of American foster youth graduate high school, compared to the general population's nearly 90%. And only 3% of foster care alumni earn a 4-year college degree. Their frequent moves, unstable housing, lack of consistent adult support, and mental health challenges significantly hinder academic success for these kids. 1 out of every 5 U.S. prison inmates has spent time in foster care. 43% of foster care youth were incarcerated by the age of 21. Perhaps not surprisingly, 30% of foster care alumni develop post-traumatic stress. This is worse than the 7% of earlier military veterans who had it, and 29% of the veterans of very recent wars who've been exposed to the much more powerful weapons that develop post-traumatic stress. So it should come at no surprise that foster care serves as a feeder for prison, homelessness, and human trafficking. Economically, however, studies show that helping a teen finish high school and go on to graduating college actually benefits society as much as $800,000. Now let's move on to the ordinary children in this country. According to the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, for the third straight year, firearms are the #1 killer of U.S. youth, slaughtering more American children aged 1 to 17 than any other cause, even surpassing car accidents and cancer. No doubt you are aware that this country has more weapons, including war weapons, in private ownership than the U.S. has population. In addition to this, 42.3% of active gun owners in America own at least one AR-15 assault weapon, the gun of choice in mass shootings, particularly school massacres. Yes, our total population of 340 million Americans, and only slightly more than half are actually adults, own 400 million guns. Yet our US military only possesses 4.4 million guns. Amazing statistics. Suicide from cyberbullying is the second cause of death for American children aged 10 to 14. According to the Pew Research Center, 53% of teens have now been cyberbullied, which allows targets to be harassed 24/7, with the numbers doubling in the last 10 years. Girls are more often victims of damaging rumor spreading, while boys receive violent threats. And for every cyberbullying suicide by a child, studies show that there are at least 100 suicide attempts. The unprecedented exposure of today's youth to the internet and technology doesn't only include cyberbullying, but also sexual predation. This is something I didn't know much about. Sexual predators even use AI to Photoshop children's faces onto explicit images to blackmail them for more graphic content, a trend that has led to severe depression and suicide. Predators use various tactics on social media, gaming apps, and messaging platforms to target, groom, and coerce kids. Online, predators build trust with children over time, often pretending to be someone their age or a potential romantic interest, before introducing sexual conversations or requests for explicit images. This then becomes sextornation, a crime that involves coercing children into sending explicit images or videos by threatening to share existing explicit content with friends or family or demanding money. Offenders also force children to engage in sexual acts or be abused on web cameras or cell phones, which can then be viewed live by paying clients anywhere in the world. The predators use flattery, gifts like e-gift cards or game credits, and emotional manipulation to lower a child's inhibitions and gain compliance. A new study also shows that the health of American children has declined profoundly over the past few decades, and the issues are so serious that children in the US are dying at a much higher rate than those in similar high-income countries. What is particularly frustrating is that the bulk of these health problems are avoidable, says Dr. Chris Forrest, co-author of a study in the JAMA Medical Journal last year. But there isn't a genetic defect unique to American kids, and it's not about socioeconomics within the US, he says. The results apply to the total pediatric population. We should all be disturbed by this, says Dr. Forrest, a professor of pediatrics at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia and director of the Applied Clinical Center. Kids in this country are really suffering, he says. Studies also show that American children are much more likely to die than kids in similar countries, not just because of gun violence, but because American children are also sicker because of chronic conditions, he says. And that's a newer phenomenon. In the 1990s, when he started taking care of children, he hardly ever saw one with a chronic condition. Today, nearly half of US children are getting medical care for a chronic health problem, the study found. Rates of mental problems such as depression, anxiety, and loneliness also increased, as did rates of autism, behavioral problems, developmental delays, speech disorders, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorders. Physical issues also increased significantly, including problems with obesity, difficulty with activity, problems with sleeping, and early menstruation. Studies show that a girl getting her period before age 12, and now it is commonly at age 8, is associated with immediate health problems, including type 2 diabetes. But in the long term, it can also raise the risk of heart and blood pressure problems. A recent government report found that these chronic diseases have made American children, quote, the sickest generation in American history, unquote. The report blamed ultra-processed food, exposure to so many dangerous chemicals in the US environment, far higher than in the EU, for example, pervasive technology use, and the overprescription of pharmaceuticals. Dr. Forrest states that the nation's entire approach towards caring for children needs to change. Our kids are being raised in a very toxic environment, and it's not just the chemicals, the foods, and the iPhones. It's much broader and much deeper. It's what we call the developmental ecosystem, and it makes it very challenging to change, he says. That's a hard answer for people who want a pithy message that tells them how to fix the issues. It's about where they're growing up, where they're going to school, where they're playing, where their families live, their neighborhoods, and it's not just one population. It's the whole nation that needs help. In the 1960s, children in the US were dying at the same rate as countries with similar incomes, but that started to change in the 1970s. The US now has many more child deaths per day compared with 18 other wealthy countries. This means that a kid born in this country is much more likely to die than if they were born in Germany or Denmark. Why are we allowing this to happen, Dr. Forrest asks. It's time to rethink how we treat kids and how we're supporting families, he asks. Children in our nation are like the proverbial canaries in the mines. When their health is deteriorating, this means the foundation of our nation is also deteriorating. Now let's take a look at child marriage in this country. These were statistics that as an investigative journalist specializing in human rights, this really shocked me. Astoundingly, until 2018, child marriage was legal in all 50 US states. Delaware and New Jersey in 2018 became the first states to ban this human rights abuse. which was followed by American Samoa in 2018, the US Virgin Islands, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota in 2020. Equally stunningly, however, child marriage remains legal in 34 states and is happening in the US at an alarming rate. Research revealed that nearly 350,000 children, some as young as 10, were married in the US during this period, mostly young girls wed to very adult men. Child marriage is forced marriage. The age of majority when children become legal adults and get the rights of adulthood is 18 or higher in every US state. Children who have not yet reached the age of majority have limited legal rights, and therefore can easily be forced into marriage or forced to stay in marriage. They face overwhelming legal and practical barriers if they try to leave home to escape a forced marriage, get help from an advocate, enter a domestic violence shelter, or retain an attorney. Perhaps more shockingly, children typically are not allowed to initiate a legal proceeding, such as seeking a protective order or even filing for divorce, unless they act through a guardian or other representative. This outrageous legal setup puts the lock in wedlock. The United Nations Office of the High Commission of Human Rights categorizes all child marriage as forced marriage. So now, as of now, 34 US states still permit marriage for individuals under the age of 18 with parental or judicial consent. Only 16 states and Washington, D.C. have banned child marriage entirely, setting the minimum at age 18 with no exceptions. Even more shocking, the US is the only UN member state out of 193 UN country members, we're the only one, which has not yet ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Its Committee on the Same reaffirms that the minimum age limit should be 18 years for marriage. So we have stood out against most of the world's population. We have not done it. As of today, 4 US states have no minimum age at all when exemptions are taken into account. These are California, Mississippi, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. The highest rates of child marriage are in Arkansas, California, Florida, Nevada, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, and West Virginia. Human Rights Watch points out that Afghanistan under the Taliban has a tougher law on child marriage than most of the United States. In Afghanistan, the minimum age of marriage is 15, and that is only with the permission of their father or judge. Otherwise, it is 16 for girls, 18 for boys. In about 88% of American child marriages, the marriage license became a get-out-of-jail-free card for a would-be rapist under state law that specifically allows within marriage what would otherwise be considered statutory rape. Judges often approve an underage marriage because the minor is pregnant. It should be pointed out that the female body is not fully matured until the age of 18 to give birth. So minors who become pregnant often face complications that are not as common in their older counterparts. UNICEF reports that globally, a girl aged 15 is 5 times more likely to die in childbirth than women in their 20s. Very young mothers also have an increased risk of developing the very difficult complications of obstetric fistulas. And so American states continue to permit child marriage in this country. This stunned me and no doubt shocks you. After what I have been talking about this morning, I find myself very often these days wondering, where is this country's humanity? Thank you. Are there any questions?
I muted everyone during the remarks. So if you want to say anything, you'll need to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Tom, what did you say?
Anyone who would like to speak will need to unmute themselves.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Jan, California really shocks me. The others do not. Oh, and
Well, I guess California is because so much of the country is Latina. And I think that is what we're seeing playing into this. I don't know, I'm guessing.
That makes sense.
I watched the commercial, I guess it's on the ads for trying to get donations for Covenant House. And I heard the statistic and I questioned it because it sounded really crazy. It said that I think I'm right. It may be slightly off, but it said 1 in 5 teenagers at some point in their life will find themselves homeless. 1 in 5. I said that cannot be correct. But even if it was 1 in 10, I mean, it's close to that. I think that's what they're saying on this advertisement, unless they're saying something that's truly incorrect. But that
Sharon,
sounds pretty.
I was a volunteer for 2 years at Covenant House. I used to do it 2 nights a week. And it's, for those of you who don't know, Covenant House is a center in Manhattan for runaway and throwaway kids. And I suspect, I suspect but don't know, that the statistic is more like the kids who are coming their way.
I see.
Yeah, but it was so common. I couldn't believe how many homeless kids. And I remember a young boy who was 16 who had been fostered out so many times, and the police brought him in because he had been standing on the roof of the Port Authority and was threatening to jump. And I remember when that happened, we used to have to take them to the Bellevue. And I remember taking him, and the two of us were put together in this sort of mental center. And I have never seen, I mean, it was horrendous, and his life was awful. But yeah, I mean, so many of these kids were throwaways, runaways. The lives were horrendous.
Yeah. We had across from me in Lackawaxen, we had a couple who had two of their own children, and they used to take in foster children. They were a very nice couple, but I assumed that they could use the extra money, and I don't know where they put these kids because the houses there are very small. But they did treat them well, as far as I can tell. They didn't treat them as well as their own children because their own children had all kinds of perks that I didn't see them having. It seemed like certainly by the time they were 18, they were gone. I know that Cheryl, the mother there, she was disappointed because I think that she was willing actually to almost adopt some of them. At least one of them that I thought had some Down syndrome or some other problem, but that child decided to go back to the mother. I don't know how that was. The other teenagers all seemed to leave either willingly or because the money had run out. I don't know, but she was willing to do more. But I think that becomes very difficult too, depending on the willingness of the teenager and maybe just whatever other difficulties that would entail. But they were a very decent couple, but that didn't stop the problem. They were gone.
Yeah.
I was in a group that meets every month to discuss issues. We were dealing with housing and how horrible housing is here. But what we did to give us some a positive look forward was what people do elsewhere. And I wonder if anybody can tell any experiences they have or knowledge about what do other communities, what do other countries, because in our little group, we looked for Scandinavia and they have dealt pretty well and are with housing. Can anybody share any place where things are going okay? I thoroughly understand what you've told us, but I don't see, are there positive examples?
Yes, in some of the European countries, including Holland, they have now, for example, started centers. They're sort of tiny little housing centers for people who are homeless. And they've done, this is a different age, they've done it also for folks with dementia. And it means that an awful lot of people don't end up on the streets as they do here, particularly kids. You know, this is a country that we've done some amazing things in this country. I've been here for 51 years. But this is a country that we're never going to see universal health care. The fact that the big, beautiful bill slashed so many things that are needed, the fact that we can slash Medicaid or just cut out school dinners. You know, imagine how many kids cannot afford to eat during the day. And, you know, we have slashed so many things. And that is not going to get better, unfortunately. It seems to be getting worse.
Yeah, I think the basic root of this, I think, is because we follow capitalism to the letter.
Yes.
For me, I truthfully, I know a lot of the statistics about every single problem that is before us, but I lack the wisdom to know Sonia, at 86 years old, relatively healthy, of all the 25 fires burning around me and around us all, how do I figure out what's best to do? And I don't really, that's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah, I
And
know
have
you
some
raise
ideas about that. It would be any of our other listeners.
you raise a
love.
very interesting issue, Sonia. I mean, just taking a look, the corporate states of America, how much our drugs are compared with how much they are here. You know, insulin can cost as much as $300 a month.
I know that, but we are
What can
just
you do?
yeah. I mean, I think this group of all these wonderful faces are pretty well informed about the fires that are burning everywhere. The question is,
What to do?
yeah, what we have to do, and yeah, and it's very hard to figure that out.
I think one of the things that we need to think about is who to donate to. I mean, even if it's small amounts. So, I mean, is it Planned Parenthood? Is it Covenant House? Is it, I know there's an organization in Wayne County. Who do we pay attention to?
Well, I can say that because I don't know about which one are really doing the job that they say they're doing, and that's always a problem. I am someone who thinks I don't think we should be looking to our government for anything. I think whatever we have to set up, like GOT or one of those kind of things that we have in the area that you're at. I'm in I'm not up where you guys are. I'm down in Pennsylvania in Easton, but I think it has to be a grassroots thing. Unfortunately, most of our members are getting elderly, and it makes it more difficult. I mean, the younger people would have to be educated to know that they're a part of what can be the solution. But I don't think we're doing that kind of education either for the young people to say, why wouldn't there be some group homes? Why wouldn't there be something that, you know, we have other kind of organizations like Habitat for Humanity making houses. We have, there was some woman who spoke with us about group homes for the elderly, that they could all live together and not have to, you know, be alone and someone they're caring. I don't know. I just think it has to be, I'd say us, not the government, but people who are a little further down that see the problem up close and personal, to see if they can't find some way, you know, some way to begin to address this, because we've been waiting for their savior for too long, and it's not happening. And I think it's up to us to make whatever we can make happen. But how to do that is another thing. But we have to engage the schools, maybe. I mean, the schools must know who are homeless or coming to their school. I can't imagine they don't, because I worked in the schools and I know which kids were coming in with tattered clothes and no food. You know, God knows they were living. I don't know where they were living. Yeah, I think we have to go and see what we can do ourselves. I just don't see it happening any other way. It's not happening, and it's getting worse. So how is
Well, let me mention something that I think is at fault here, is the media. This country has not had a free press in 20 years. Our media is now run by 6 multinational corporations, which can restrict what they publish. We know that the reporters on the Washington Post, many of them have walked out because they're not allowed to write what they would like to write. And I think that's a major problem too. We don't have a free press in this country. You have your hand up, Art.
I'm not sure how this works. I just talk into this now?
Yep.
Okay, people here. Okay, great. Jan, it's good to see you again. I was afraid I wouldn't. And you've touched a part of me that's really powerful. I worked in foster and adoptive care for many years. I adopted kids in Romania.
You did.
And it was rather bizarre and chaotic and capricious over there. But I found that it was more doable in Romania just at the end of Ceausescu's term than it was here to adopt children.
Wow.
Over there, once you knew who to bribe, the system worked. Here, you couldn't bribe anybody. No, but the system simply did not work. I left after 8 years. As if I had been given an award at my retirement, it would have been the least appreciated of all my colleagues because I was there to talk to them about what they were required to do in order to get the system working and get kids adopted. And they hated me for it because the adoptive parents or the foster parents would call and say, "Hey, this is your responsibility." And they didn't want the responsibility. It was just horrible. Deeper than that, I think we've got the myth that America does it best. America is wonderful. We take care of this, we take care of that. We simply do not. That's just a myth, a dream. And just compare the remaining adoption to American adoption. I'll be glad to do it and show how far behind we are in not taking care of our kids. I couldn't relate to people who didn't care about the welfare of kids, and I didn't make many friends. Um, I did work with a lesbian couple who were just wonderful a wonderful adoptive couple. A woman was not in foster care, but she came from poverty up in Providence. And there was a group of about 30 of them, some in foster care, some not in foster care, but all in dire straits. And they stuck together like a class. They had reunions every year and they supported each other. They found their own community and family. One of my dreams is to go to the local Eldred High School and say, identify the kids who don't have family support, and let's get together once a week or twice a week for a pancake breakfast, and let's know what's going on in school. How can we help you? How can we support you? What challenges are there? And get ourselves connected to those kids so that they do have some sort of a net underneath them. When they fall, they know they can go at least go and talk to somebody. And you and I could talk for weeks on this because it's horrible.
It is.
Anyway.
Hi, this is Tamara. Could I speak?
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for that talk. I just wanted to share a little bit. I dealt with this when I was a child, so there was a lot of violence in my life, and I kind of had the unique, I don't know how it happened, but I put myself in a foster home. I'm not really sure. I mean, I was little, so when I found out about foster homes, I went to the police and said, "I'm not going back. You're going to have to put me in this thing called foster home." And they assigned me a attorney who was most wonderful person. But I was put in a group home while he and I were looking for a foster home, and the group home was just as violent as my home.
Wow.
Anyway, but I did want to say there are programs out there. There's Al-Anon for teens. There's ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunction for teens. I didn't have experience and I did not know about them as a child. I can tell you when I went to college, I was a little bit older, but had been on my own and emancipated myself at a very young age. Lied about my age to get jobs, but finally got to college. And that was the first time I had a roof over my head and food every day. And that was amazing. And I was able to accomplish a lot with those things. But so in this area, I do know about Big Brother, Big Sister programs. I don't have experience with that, but that's been on my list to look into. But there's also a program with equine therapy, and that is pretty amazing. I just found out that they have branched out to include foster children, which I am so jazzed about that they're doing this. I studied veterinary science and then I studied psychology, and I really wanted one of my things was to use animals in therapy. And I know how much the animals when I was growing up meant to me. And I think that's beautiful. And just supporting maybe programs like that. So I don't know. I just learned about it this last week about the equine therapy program for the foster kids. So I'm not sure how that works. I'm not sure if you can support a child, if you can support the riding centers. There's 2 of them, and I think one is in Damascus, and one is. I don't remember the other area. It's in just over the border in Pennsylvania from where we are in
Milford.
Oh, okay. Oh, Milford. I didn't know Milford did foster children, though. I knew they were equine therapy, but I
Yeah,
didn't
I'm
know.
sorry, I'm not sure about foster, but they have equine
Oh, okay.
therapy.
I
Yeah.
think, Tamara, what we need to look at, which is was one of the major problems in this country, is the slashing of funding. And if we're going to look at that, I think we also have to look at the power of lobbies in this country.
Mhm.
Lobbies are a major, major industry, and they are basically buying up our politicians.
Oh, yes, I totally agree with that.
And
But I know a lot of people were interested in, like, what do we do here locally for our children here locally? So
I
I
think
wanted to speak
locally
up.
or nationally, we're talking about funding being slashed. And
Right.
that is one of the things that is so scary. Anyone
Well,
else?
I did want to give examples of programs in the area that maybe people want to.
No, I think, Tamara, that was great. And I just wanted to ask you, what state did you grow up in?
New York.
Oh, that's interesting. Penelope, do you have a question? A comment?
I wanted to say also, if anyone wanted to learn from the inside, I'd be happy to share with them.
That sounds great, Tamara. Penelope, do you have a comment? You're muted. You're muted. Unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think that we should get back to the local, and I'm wondering if you or its membership or somebody would, or a little committee would like to actually compile a list of all the local outreach programs, whether governmental or private or church, and see what is there that us old folks can contribute to or volunteer for.
Well, I know that, Tom, you said you have a board meeting after this. So that's something, and you're muted also, and Laurie, you're both muted if you wanted to comment.
That is, I put a note in the chat box that lists the upcoming programs the next few weeks, and at the end of that, it says the annual meeting of members of UDUUF that was scheduled for today will be held on a future date when we can meet in person. So that's the answer as far as the board meeting. I think concerning the idea of a list of local outreach programs where we can volunteer, that's a great idea.
Go ahead.
Sorry, did Laurie have any comments? And she's muted. Maybe she's not there. She's not unmuting. Okay.
I just wanted to say that.
Laura's there.
Laurie, did you have any comments?
No, I don't have any comments.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that the community itself probably has some resources. I don't mean the government, but I mean different organizations, different fundraising techniques and stuff like that. Fund me. I don't know how people do it, but I know that when I worked as an activist, most of the money that we got to do whatever we did actually came from people who cared like we did, people giving whatever they could. We don't know what we can do, but there are churches. I'm sure there maybe there can be some sort of coalition to bring this information forward so that enough locals get that information through their churches, just like we're getting it today, through the schools. And then maybe there's just enough of us that want to do something, because something has to be done, and we cannot depend on anybody else, because nobody else is really going to get there with us. And I do think that if we raise funds for for social justice. Maybe we can raise funds, have a specific fund, set out for these people, especially if we had something to put it toward, to offer. So I'm just putting that out there. Just let's depend on the people who really care and not try to recruit people who don't give a darn.
One way to explore this might be to invite Adrienne Jensen to come and speak to the fellowship. She is the executive director of Evergreen Academy, Meadows Academy, and they actually, which is a organization that deals with children with mainly, I think, girls at risk, and they actually just received a grant for $2 million. So
Oh,
I think Adrienne would be a person who could absolutely help in terms of explaining the local landscape.
They're in Rock Hill,
sounds
I think.
excellent. Yep.
Jan, may I say something in closing? Jan, it's you.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just thinking that a national message is important. I was watching Jake Tapper, and they were talking about on social media somebody posting, forget Greenland, provide health care. I think not just for the Democrats, the independents, whatever, because Trump now has a 26% a passing score on his report card. And apparently 56% of people in the country feel that, not just immigration, but everything's going the wrong way, Greenland, whatever. We need to come up with some sort of a message. As trite as it is, everybody remembers a cleaner New York is up to you. I remember as a kid when people would just toss things out of their car window, or Smokey the Bear. Those are trite, but if we have somebody who can come up with some sort of a serious national message and promote it, or your brain is fried on drugs, something that people will pay attention to, consider. That's what we really need. We've had nothing but idiotic messaging, if we've had any messaging at all. And I don't know if we have to hire an advertising, agency to do it, but we need, if you have any kind of a message that you want promulgated, you need to come up with some sort of again, it's idiotic, but a catchy phrase, something people can adhere to and then go forward. And then I think you can, do more on a local level. But you've got to get attention to these things, and, that's just something. Anyway.
Yep.
A message that's short enough to fit on a bumper sticker. That's all I can say.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. So I think that's everyone. Over to you, Sharon.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jan. That was very informative.
Depressing.
It's going to give us a lot of things to think about, and maybe some action can be taken somewhere. That would be, action is what we have to think about doing, is because we have no other choices. We just have to do something. It'll make us all feel a lot better. They keep on saying when you do for others, it comes back to you any which way. So that's good all the way around. So it's time to extinguish the chalice, which I will do. I didn't bring my extinguisher, but I think I'll just blow it out. And in each breath we take, may we remember the work of love, justice, and healing is ours to continue, both here and beyond these walls. And I have some closing words. They're also by Octavia Butler. And they are: kindness eases change, love quiets fear, and a sweet and powerful positive obsession blunts pain, diverts rage, and engages each of us in the greatest, the most intense of our chosen struggles. So it's wonderful being with all of you. It was great to see all these people I hadn't seen for a while. I have a marvelous week, and enjoy the rest of the time wherever you're going to be. Nobody's there to have treats. I've got treats here all the time. I'm a treat maker.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, thanks,
you,
Jan.
Sharon.
Great to hear from you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Jan. Fabulous presentation.
Much love. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, Jan.